So these days, the new atheism is also on the rise, and where they actually are getting their energy from is the same argument of evolution, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This cracks on its own face, don't worry.
Yeah. So, and there are 2 or 3 different flanks through which new atheism is actually trying to, attack the basic theology or basic philosophy of creationism and everything. First one being obviously whatever Richard Dawkins was saying in the last video, that there is a lack of evidence of God. And then followed by that, their argument is that the very fact that there are multiple religions and even the 3 mainstream monotheistic religions don't agree on the nature of God. So there is lack of evidence, and then there's the nature of God, that what God is all about, what are the qualities of a God, what are the good qualities that a God should have. So all the 3 mainstream religions actually don't agree on that. And then that is followed by a fact, by an opinion that God is not needed anymore, because we can explain everything around us based on this philosophy, based on this evolutionary biology, and based on the fact that there was a Big Bang and the world.
Well, evolutionary biology does not create man. It explains how the man is created. So we need God, even if we are believing in any sort of science. However, the 3 different gods, in any man's opinion, it just shows lack of research. There is absolutely no difference in the concept of God in either one of the religions. If anything, I have studied more than just these 3, but let's just keep it to these 3. What is the difference in either one of his definitions of God or the attributes of God? There is absolutely no difference. If anything, even if we could take Pauline, and I don't, I repeat, I do not take Pauline philosophy as Christianity. But even if we take that, the concept of God and the attributable structure of God and the perception of God is practically the same. It's not innately the same, but practically the same. So no non-Christian can check it out, or no Christian can actually of this age can determine the difference of the Muslim God, definition of God, versus the Jewish God. Now I know what they can actually put Jesus in the picture and say, the Son of God, both of your gods don't beget children. And that's a sub-attribute that they actually, assign to God. That's not within the concept, it does not conflict with the concept of God.
God is still the creator?
Yeah. They don't really cross that line. Well, they don't have a different definition or perception of God.
They don't actually limit their argument to just, God being the ultimate explanation of whatever.
And I don't even hold this as an argument that, since all of our definitions align, so you believe either one of them. I'm not using this as an argument. What I'm saying is, when these people say that, it's a psychological issue. I'll tell you why. Because of mainly Paul. Most of these, and you're not going to see an atheist coming out of Jewish households who's going to say that. An atheist who's going to come out of a Christian household or Christianish household is going to definitely say that, because we'll be used to this whole new age data that flows around television and all of that stuff, and Fox News and whatnot, or YouTube. The literature of St. Paul is the basis on which all this confusion is coming out. Okay. Now, I don't know why Muslims don't take it seriously, because Allah Azza wa Jal uses this very word confused for Christians. You know what I'm saying? Waladallin is because of St. Paul. He put 14 books out of 27 inside the whole Testament, the New Testament. And he's coming up with weird views, his own definitions and literal laws and brackets and slashes and edits of the way Christians used to look at Torah. Because I'm saying Christians because Christians were before. The true Christianity was right before St. Paul. He came 5 years after the crucifixion of Jesus. So once you go through this sort of philosophy of St. Paul, I don't blame you for getting confused. becoming atheist. I don't, you know what? I am halfway there with you. But the fact that you're going to judge Islam or even the Old Testament based on your New Testament or Pauline philosophy, then that's your fault. God of Torah and God of Quran, and even the God perception of God in St. James was the same. And even if you read other, Gospel of Barabbas, for example, or and that is a companion of St. Paul, by the way. But St. James, let's just say, right before Paul, and this is the man who lived with Jesus. So if you take his definitions and his data, that's, a mirror image of the Quran and Torah. And okay, even if there is a definition of some sort of a change in definition, their definition, St. James' definition of Jesus is the same as Muslims, and that's the most ironic part. This is why I'm saying St. Paul didn't even get to see Jesus. He never lived a day with him. He just got visions. I don't deny that he was not getting visions of.
So to summarize that, if you have to study science, you have to go to the right resources.
Well, at least open the books. Yeah, at least read the books. This is as simple as that. Read most of the Richard Dawkins or whoever you're going to. They have, I guarantee you, they have not even opened the Quran, let alone, they only look at those extracts which are, in those weird websites that go on. There's slavery in Islam and there's stoning to death in Islam and whatever, there's Al-Qaeda, anti-Al-Qaeda slogans. That's what they're reading. They have never read the Quran, and they have read the Bible when they were kids. You know what I'm saying? And St. Paul's Bible.
That's why actually.
That's why it happens. And that's where I'm actually telling you that my book actually tells how big of a confusion there is. We're calling 3 billion people confused here. It takes a lot of guts.
So another argument is that God being superfluous is not just because we cannot define or we cannot actually explain all this phenomena without the concept of God. It's also because religion is probably outdated now and we don't need religion. We can actually define our own morals based on our own senses, based on our own consensus.
It's not the New Age thing.
Before we dive into that as well, let's go through a video on atheism. We have the 4 horsemen of atheism, Lawrence Krauss, Christopher Hitchens, and everybody else. We have a video. Can you please play the video?
There's no evidence that we need anything other than the laws of physics and the other laws of science to explain everything we see.
Or convincing reason, certainly no evidential one, to believe that there is such an entity and that all observable phenomena, including the cosmological one to which I'm coming, are explicable without the hypothesis. You don't need the assumption. Or that by making the appropriate propitiations and adopting the appropriate postures and following the appropriate rituals, we can overcome death. I don't believe that, and for a priori reasons, don't. If there was an entity that was responsible for the beginning of the cosmos, and that also happened to be busily engineering the very laborious production of life on our little planet, it still wouldn't prove that this entity cared about us, answered prayers, cared what church we went to, or whether we went to one at all, cared who we had sex with, or in what position, or by what means, cared what we ate, or on what day, cared whether we lived or died. There's no reason at all why this entity isn't completely indifferent to us. That you cannot get from deism to theism except by a series of extraordinarily generous to yourself.
So here's my argument for moral truth in the context of science. Questions of right and wrong and good and evil depend upon minds. Okay, they depend upon the possibility of experience. Minds are natural phenomena. They depend upon the laws of nature in some way. Okay, morality and human values, therefore, can be understood through science because in talking about these things, we are talking about all of the facts that influence the well-being of conscious creatures.
Religion is part of a complex of supernatural beliefs that are founded on lack of evidence, astrology, homeopathy, all sorts of things like that. And it could be said that some of these are harmless. I don't think it's harmless. There is something insidious about training children to believe things for which there's no evidence.
It seems to me, to put it in a condensed form, extraordinary claims, such as the existence of a divine power with a son who cares enough to come and redeem us, extraordinary claims require truly extraordinary evidence.
First of all, a lot of people believe in God. Okay. But then there's a lot of people who don't believe in God, but believe in God. That is, they've lost their faith, or they never had it in the first place, but they think belief in God is a pretty darn good thing. Now, the people who believe in God, they also believe in God.
Right. But the people
So
who
we
don't,
add the two groups together, and you got to have more. There's more people that believe in God, that whether they believe in God or not, than who believe in God.
As has been said, that science does not make it impossible to believe in God. It just makes it possible to not believe in God. And
So the question is, these are the 2 or 3 different flanks through which, the modern atheism actually attacking the concept of religion. How can actually a case for God be made, amidst all this confusion that they are trying to propagate, or the fact that science is basically, it does not make it impossible to believe in God, but it makes it possible to not believe in God because it's, explaining the phenomena in
I'll tell you something. When a group such as these people, and they're not a group actually, they're all individuals, and pretty soon you'll see atheism as an academic faculty and atheistic literature part of the academic faculty at some level. So that is when it's going to become a group. When they're actually, pumping evidence, knowing that they do not have evidence, that just shows a bitter reaction. That's all there is to it. It's a reaction that you need to show evidence, even though they do not have any evidence. We can show them the science. We can show them literal evidences which make perfect sense, unexplainable otherwise, then, the historical data that Muhammad ﷺ cannot just come up with this book himself. It explains so much that no man, including him or any other philosopher before or even after him, came up with even a discussion of these sort of topics, let alone come up with such crystal clear reality-based details of biology and astronomy, and even, sometimes predicting the future so literally that there is no way that these sort of subjects and equations were in play. And this man, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just comes out of down a cave and he starts narrating the biggest possible truths with such, clear claims that this is the truth. This itself cannot just be negotiated out of evidence. Okay? This is evidence, as evidential as it gets, because it's still here. And we have data to literally, it's not that far in the past, it's only 1400 years ago. So we know where it came from, we know how.
So on that point, Hitchens also makes an argument, and he calls it retrospective evidentialism, that whatever we see, we say that, yeah, this was said to 1400 years ago. And then if the data changes...
No, but it is still an argument of history, right? It's still an argument of history. In history, we do not see any of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's contemporary even opening up these sort of discussions. So it's not just the fact that it's only 1400 years ago. No, the topic of discussion, the category, and the level of, and the depth of thought and clarity of those details, and the fact that they're now are considered as true, that is something which is a miracle, which is evidence of it being, divine. Otherwise, you would have had at least one person, who can come up with some sort of this sort of enormity of a claim, or literally these sort of miracles before or after the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But it never happened. It literally never happened, because whenever it did happen, it came from Musa alayhi salam, the king, you know what I'm saying? Or Isa salam, actually we do not have his book, but the guy was literally born out of, no father, spoke when he was, because this is not an ordinary human being, Isa ibn Maryam. So if he comes up with something, okay, yeah, we can say, what, it was backed up by something else. But a regular man with no evidence of any extraordinary event backing him up, all of a sudden comes up with, the biggest book in the history of the planet, and still that everybody's throwing arrows at it and still missing, is enough of a proof for the thinking mind. I'm not even inviting the thinking mind here. Okay, I'm just inviting every mind and making them think. The thinking mind is already going to find its path inside the Quran. Don't worry about it. And even if it's not, it's okay. It's still going to have less chance of errors. But people who just criticizing the Quran without even reading it, getting intimidated by science because of their own inferiority complexes, they think science has the answers. None of them is a scientist. Did you ever just show me? They're not scientists. Okay. When the scientists themselves claim that either, the claim of humility, that, we could be wrong about everything that we've just found out. We could just have any new meteor can come in and we can discover something new, and, we could still come up with the smallest particle in the universe through a meteor or through some sort of a new discovery, or new source of energy comes in. All of a sudden the laws of nature would just, change, if not, become obsolete. Then, yeah, they're all open to this. So what I'm asking is a simple question, that such a temporary state of affairs that science actually creates, and it says that it's very temporary. I'm not going to change the permanent claim of it being, forever, and eternity is involved here. I'm not going to take your word for it unless you put something eternal here. And I'm asking them, okay, you started with the origin of life. That would make it as eternal as it gets, at least halfway there. So why don't you just give me the answer to that, and I'm going to take you seriously. Otherwise, everyone knows that it's just a matter of 100 years, or even less, that every single definition in the book is going to render itself obsolete. And at that time, we'll be just laughing at our own selves. Of course, being Muslim, we'll be crying that, you know what? We just believed in these people because we were intimidated or bullied by them. Well, I'm not going to be bullied by people who can't even prove themselves out of their own box. That's as simple as I want to make it. So I am not suffering from that psychological inferiority to just believe just because a scientist says something. Just because a scientist says something stupid doesn't make it scientific. It's still a stupid thing. Because you do not have any evidence does not make our case weak. Or if our case is weak, you need to produce some evidence, since you're the biggest magician on the planet right now, because you're popping up something from nothing everywhere. If you can pop up something from nothing, then it gives us a lot more rights than just to, because we're not just creating something out of nothing. We're actually putting a lot more burden of character, of values, of sacrifice, emotional correctness, justice, empathy, that's coming out of ours, nothing. And their nothing brings up an atom with absolutely no meaning of life. Anybody can do anything and no questions asked. You know what I'm saying? And it does not explain all the requirements of morality, which the last argument of Sam Harris was. He's not talking about the requirement of morality. He's talking about morality as a subject. I'm talking about a requirement of morality as a subject. Why is that universal? And why is that so uniquely similar in every single part of the world? Not right now, throughout the eras. We never evolved morality. We can take it down a little in clusters like this, fringes, which is LGBT and all of that, whatever, the postmodernistic view. But we never took it up. So somebody came up with the best definitions on the first day of humankind. And that husband and wife were talking, and they came up with the finest definitions of morality, and they started teaching everybody downstairs. That's what they're saying?
Actually, morality is also regressing. These are the examples that we find in the
It
history.
is. On the fringes, it is regressing. But general concept of morality, of empathy and justice, liberty and freedom, are you kidding me? This is psychosocial? No. This is not. This is not a social construct. This is not a construct which came through time. This was ingrained right in the first. That's why I don't believe in evolution, by the way. can't just come up with morality because, oh, somebody started to think about others. He was the best monkey of us all. You know what I'm saying? That's not how, yeah, that's what they're saying. Even, Muslim scholars are saying, you know what, this kind of evolution should be accepted. So where is this morality, meter? Adam alayhi salam was the first in morality or the first of 100% morality? So somebody with 99% was there. You know what I'm saying? According to these Muslim scholars, I'm sorry, even if Adam alayhi salam did come from evolution, according to them, where is Hawa alayhi salam coming from? You know what I'm saying? I don't know why they call themselves Muslims and believe in this sort of thing. And even if they were both here, then why is Allah Azza wa Jalla saying, go down on earth now? You know what I'm saying? That evolution happened somewhere else. This evolution where, Neanderthals are dancing around happened on this planet.